Right, let's try this. Let's try again. So hopefully you've come back and joined me again. So apologies if there was any echo or any noise. I did have my laptop. One day I'll share my terrible setup. I probably do need to invest in a better setup for these kind of lives. But actually I've got my laptop lent against the Lego box with my camera attached to my Lego box by some oranges. So hence why there might have been some echo. But anyway, just wanted to see, hopefully everyone's back on now. Hopefully everyone can join me, and then we can carry on the conversation about engaging with those consumers in the physical retail space post the lockdown. So as I was saying, we are in the midst of a 4-week lockdown here in England, and been thinking a lot about how we engage with everybody post the lockdown and during the lockdown. So I suppose be great to kind of get any thoughts and questions about how we start to move out of the lockdown and what retail 2021 begins to look like. So I've had a few questions before today's session. Obviously, as mentioned before, I've had totally open to questions and comments and ideas and thoughts and all those sort of things that we can debate and discuss here today. So hopefully you guys are back on, hopefully you're here, and hopefully we can have some questions and comments and thoughts over some bits. So anyway, as always, I will sort of just wrap it on for the next 30 minutes. And if you're open to anything after that, if you want to ask any questions or send anything off, then we will pick it up from there. So perfect. I think people are picking this up now, so that's great. So so sort of thinking about, I suppose, what can brands and retailers do during the current lockdown to engage with their consumers. So really, there's so much, and I've heard so much today on the radio and the news about how obviously we had a great weekend, like weather this weekend, and everybody's sort of out getting their fix of vitamin D and air and all those sort of things, exercise, and I was in the park with my girls, and takeaway coffee was packed and all those things. So there is opportunity, and I know it's slightly stretching some of the rules, and I don't know, I'm not one sort of debate here about the rules of the lockdown, but ultimately there's still huge opportunity during this time, that it's not a time to go quiet on your customers. So there's still a huge point for brands and retailers to do during the lockdown, and one of those that we sort of thought about last week and really sort of began to push out on was the idea of the click and collect, and how important that is to start to think about how you can use that during the next 3 or 4 weeks as a retailer or a brand to continue to discuss or meet or see your customers, whether you're a small sort of local business with an online presence, or a sort of major retailer, really, that the idea that click and collect can still continue for retailers. Now I know there's some logistical pieces in that, and problems with furlough and staff and all those sort of things, but how incredible that you can continue to engage personally and physically with your consumer by offering a click and collect service for the next 3 weeks or 4 weeks, however long's left now till the beginning of December, when we sort of move out of this, hopefully, and really drive out that loyalty, I suppose, and ensure that your consumer still comes to your physical store and engages with you both digitally and physically. So it's that piece again that we've talked about a lot, but that experience piece that you're offering your customer or your consumer or your brand fan or whatever they are, that they can still engage with you physically. So, and I suppose there's a sort of debate around whether you want to encourage people to go out to the store, but the opportunity to allow for a click and collect service ensures that you could then offer a hand packaged or gift wrapped on collection, or you give it to them in a gorgeous bag, or there's so much that my brain starts to think, well, how do you make that a positive story or a positive piece of creativity, or the fact that your customer can then go to your store, or they're just out anyway. So yeah, I was, like I say, my local high street, to go to the park, to go to the cafe, to get to the coffee shop, and all those sort of essential retailers that are still open. But you walk past the non-essential retailers, so there's still huge opportunity to utilize your window spaces. And it's been great to see everyone sort of rush to get a lot of Christmas windows in before lockdown, and to make sure that their stores still look fantastic during the next sort of 3 weeks, because everyone's still engaging with you. It's not like the last lockdown where people sort of stayed away. There's still this real sort of drive out. So there's this whole piece around creating this anticipation to physically purchase. I think there's a lot of thought around Christmas and how we go out to shop and all those. So it's that piece that the retail store, and I suppose I keep saying it every week, has a huge importance to a brand or a retailer to drive out a certain significance to that brand message. And it's probably not, like we've debated every week, it's not the same as 3 years ago. That the store is now doing a completely different job. So and it's also bringing the store to life in other ways. So it's kind of thinking about how you bring that to life. And I saw this incredible, like Costa have now started to do a Costa Pod or a Costa Express truck. So the bits where I was talking a few weeks ago about why would Nike not just take a massive giant trainer and drop it in a park and turn it into a shop, and we've talked about pop-up shops and all those. So, but the fact that Costa now have got a little truck that drives around, and it's got Costa Express machines built into the back of it, and they can take that to a park. Why would they not take that to Richmond Park? When I saw so many people in Richmond Park, not me, but obviously there was in the news at the weekend. They drive their little Costa truck in there, and how you're still engaging with the consumer on a level. They've got a giant pod that grows out of the back of a lorry, and it's just this huge Costa vending machine. So it's those ways again of thinking outside the box, that retail and the retail store doesn't have to be that white box anymore. And I think it's beginning that that's the next 3 weeks of lockdown begins to unravel that a bit, and how you can start to play with your sort of messaging and you're taking your activations to the consumer, or continuing a presence in a slightly different way without physically retailing that store anymore, ready for when people are ready. So I think that's huge in terms of the future of retail and the opportunities sort of during lockdown. And then in some of the other questions is we've got here, so what opportunities are there post-lockdown for retailers and brands visually? So I like the little crossed fingers there. So hopefully when we do come out of lockdown on the 2nd, or lockdown 2.0 on the 2nd of December, that there's so many opportunities. I think what's going to happen post lockdown is that there is sort of taking those that pent up demand, I suppose, you know, that piece and around Christmas shopping. So obviously, everyone at the Wild takes the complete mickey out of me now because I talked about a coat last week. But I went out specifically on Wednesday night to buy a coat because I knew the shops were closing, and I wanted to physically engage with a coat. I couldn't, as I said last week, I couldn't find a coat online. I couldn't buy a coat. I couldn't try it on. I couldn't touch it, and all those sort of things. And I went out on a quest last Wednesday night to get my hair cut and a coat, and achieved both. So it was quite a successful night. But yeah, I think there'll be this thing again that come the 2nd of December, people will be desperate to physically engage with their Christmas shopping. You know, there's so much around Christmas that is emotional and physical, or it touches your senses. It touches your senses. So again, I've sort of sit here and talk about it, but you can sit and do. I've done it again. I've sat and looked at Christmas things for presents, and I've sat and looked at advent calendars to buy for my girls, but it's not the same as going into a shop and seeing it or smelling all those things that come at Christmas and hearing everything and all of those. So there will, I think, be, if we come out of this lockdown and non-essential retail opens, and it'll have to be in a sort of considered way, but there will definitely be this huge opportunity to sort of harness this pent up Christmas shopping. And you know, people will have missed, I don't know what's going to happen about Black Friday, but people would have missed, you know, they'll have had their final sort of pay weekend, and then it'll be Christmas, and then there'll be this countdown to Christmas. So yeah, it's about how do you engage with people through all those sort of senses again, through smell, touch, as much as we can touch stuff, but Christmas sort of experience, and try and bring it to life in whatever way is possible. So whether it's through I think the opportunity that comes with a sort of coming out of the post lockdown, and those opportunities, is that it's about editing your offer, I think, for a retailer or a brand. You know, it's about presenting the best selection of products, or the best selection of, you know, your range of Christmas. So you're making that selection or that purchasing decision for your consumer much easier. So whether it's a pop-up activation, and again, spoken so much on here about pop-ups, and how good they will be, and what they sort of add into the future of retail. But even around Christmas, like, why not open a Christmas pop-up specifically around gifting, you know, or around anything you think will touch your consumer, that your consumer will be looking for those 4 weeks before Christmas. And that's the joy of the pop-up again, is, you know, you only have to pop up for that period of time. So, or revise your retail strategy to take your pop-up somewhere else. You know, take it to the local high street, take it to a town you're not in, take it out of central London because people aren't there this year. Take it out of train stations and think about where is your consumer. So that's the opportunity post lockdown, is to revise your strategy, and sort of refocus their attention on you in a different location, or on your services and your products. So there's so much opportunity post lockdown. I'm just going to ping one here. This is interesting. So because I've seen some great stuff. I've seen Charlotte Tilbury's this week, and in terms of that virtual in-store, so Charlotte Tilbury's virtual store looks fantastic, and I think there is massive sort of legs on creating these virtual in-store experiences. You know, my only sort of harking back to my coat piece, you still can't try it on. You still can't touch it and smell it and taste it. And I think it still, it engages you more. It allows you to move and see product in a different way. But there's something about a store or a retail environment that you can't get virtually. It's the same as Zoom. It's the same as meeting someone in real life. It's the same as having a conversation with someone. It's that emotional and physical connection to something. So I think there's so many things, and technology is fantastic in bringing stuff to life and in sharing and engaging with things and immersing yourself in it. And it's the same with AR technology, that you can place products in your house and you can play around with, the clip drop I was playing with the other week, and I was cutting stuff out and putting it in on the screen and mucking about with things like that. But it's kind of only to a certain limit. I still can't engage with it. I still can't. And maybe, I think, give it 5-10 years, you probably can. But at the moment, I can't get in that. It goes back to the coat. I can't get in the coat. And now I've got in the coat. I know what it feels like. So, and it was an easy purchase because I tried it on. I could feel it and look at it and all those sort of things. So, I think there's so much around that physical engagement. I think that's great. It is the nice fix for a few challenges, but nothing can replace that connection to a brand in physical form. And I think that's right. There's different, obviously a grocery store. I think if you're buying a sort of certain type of product, if you're a brand fan and a product fan, if it's something you've bought before, if it's a fragrance, a really interesting one actually. My daughter got I talk her about a lot, and she does a Reddit because I say you should come on, and she says no way, you're like way too embarrassing. But she got a small sample of a perfume, which actually thinking about it is fantastic because she knows now that she likes that perfume and she can order it online. So thinking like that's quite interesting. Just not even thought about that, but that had come through the post, a small sample. I think she'd seen it, or she'd asked me to order it, and now she likes it. So maybe there's thinking about different ways to engage with your consumer, to touch all those the senses and things. But I still think there's a huge significance for the retail store to play in sort of the future. So which kind of goes on to the next point, really, is about how the retailers and brands look to move into 2021. And that's really about, I think, those sort of consumer-focused destinations. There'll definitely be less, and I hope as things are beginning to look a bit better, more rosy. Sort of, they're talking about vaccinations and all those sort of things. So it seems that we're moving in the right direction. I won't talk about America and all those sort of things, but I'm not political. But we're moving in the right direction in terms of hopefully beginning to allow people to engage slightly more in terms of the experience thing. But I think as with everything, that we've had people's habits changed, people's shopping habits changed, and the whole sort of pandemic has driven out the acceleration of digital anyway. So we've all talked for a long time about the sort of retail reset and the revised strategy for the store, and it's just been accelerated. So this is nothing new or a different sort of path for retail. Is what is happening really is about how we create that experience. And I know experience is such a buzzword at the moment, but ultimately that's what I think people will be looking to do. Like the days where people go out and just walk around shops and sort of meander between shops and shopping is a day out. It's less of that. I think it's about that. It's less of a browsing, and where everyone's more educated and more in tune with brands, and they're in tune with a brand's values. So everyone's so has their sort of lifestyle choices really, and that they sort of engage with brands that fit with their own personal values. So the days where you'd walk around individual shops and just go shopping, I think has massively changed. So what a shop now needs to do, or a retail destination or a shopping centre or whatever it is, needs to focus on the consumer and deliver the content that will engage that consumer, sort of, and provide a reason to visit. There's so much. What will happen next year in 2021 if things begin to get better or things are slightly relaxed? Shopping is going to fight with everything else. All the other opportunities, and people are going to have sort of reevaluated their sort of lifestyle and their choices. So I think everything that we do is going to be more considered. And I was thinking about it at the weekend, that actually I think my future thoughts on what I'd like to do with my time and spare time is to have more experiences. So whether it's to just go to to watch a live sporting event, or to go on to travel and all of those sort of things. So actually brands and retailers need to fit in to people's revised their own revised strategies, I think. So and it's where that is all about creating a reason to visit, and whether it's creating an edited selection of products or an edited selection of activities, or whether it's all about content. And I've talked about it on sort of various platforms really, but brands and retailers and whatever your landlords, whoever it is, needs to think about the content they're curating as importantly as anyone else's content that they're putting out digitally. So the physical content has to be as engaging and provide such a strong reason to visit as anything else. So and focused on the consumer. So again, I think there's going to be more focus on maybe activities or collaborations or those things that kind of intertwine various whether it's various members of the family or various groups. I talked last week about Frasers in Portsmouth, and I know Ian went to visit that, and it'd be great to kind of understand that. But how it's about creating those destinations where you can go with your groups of your friends and you're all on the same everyone, you all like the same things in that store or that environment. And I think it's interesting that because I've got 2 children and I'm a bit of a Lego geek, but like Lego are now collaborating with people like Adidas, or Playmobil are doing things with Ghostbusters. How all of those sort of things are merging. So I'm of 40 and I can do things that I enjoy with, and I sort of relate to as much as my children do. So your brands are creating these emotional experiences that we can celebrate and share together. So I definitely think it's less of those non-insular sort of moments next year, and it's about brands harnessing that, and us as creators and visuals people to bring those to life really, in creating those, back to that buzzword, in creating those experiences that engage with the consumer. So there's huge opportunity, I think, for brands in 2021. So and taking that to revising the retail strategy. So what's so important for retailers especially is to revise their strategy to make sure that they're sort of twisting their portfolio or their operations or their activations to where people are going to be. So whether that's in whether they're going to be travelling more, hopefully, or going on certain holidays or wherever. You know, Armani have opened a store in Aspen, like a pop-up. How cool is that? Because people are going to be going, and I imagine they are going. I'm not a big skier, but you know, this the first time they've ever opened a store in Aspen, and I remember when I was at Jack Wills, we used to do this thing called the Seasonaires, and we'd take the whole brand to where people were going, you know, back at on their holidays. So I think as consumer habits change and as people are going to be doing a lot more and focusing on where they spend their disposable income and those sort of things, brands will need to go where they are rather than just hoping they open the doors and they will come. So it all needs to be much more considered, and that is exciting. I think it's hugely exciting for me as a sort of person who thinks visually and creatively. I'm not sort of, I think as a visual person, and I've spoken about it before, there's so much opportunity for the skill sets of as a VM and as a sort of retail creative person, because all these stories need to come alive. All these activations and collaborations and projects and product launches and all those things need to come alive somewhere and somehow, and visually they have to come alive for people to engage with them, because people can do incredible things digitally, and there's some amazing things that people do digitally, and they look incredible, and they sort of touch you and feel like all of those things, but they don't capture you on those 3 points: that taste it, touch it, smell it, all those things. They don't capture you at all. So I've just kind of rambled again without even looking at any of my messages I've got here, but this is an interesting one. Sort of try and buy a home scheme. I think it's interesting is, but I'm not as probably as a it's sort of outside my remit in terms of fully understanding retail operations. But I think I think there's got to be innovative ways for brands to now engage with their customers. Maybe I'm not the right target audience, because I probably still, regardless of how many coats I put in my basket, I probably wouldn't have ordered them all. And there's something about going to the shop and discovering it and getting all the key benefits of it. But I know there is a scheme, and I think you can buy stuff and you sort of pay it back at a certain point, and I think there has to be a way for brands. But the challenge with that, and I think there's a sort of double-edged sword really with people's. It goes back to that kind of reevaluating your own values around how much people are consuming now. And I know the first lockdown, everyone kind of reevaluated everything and started looking at how much they were buying and how much they were sort of churning through in terms of goods and those sort of things. So I think what I certainly want to do is my purchasing is much more considered, but wants to have more like a connection to it. So again, my guys are going to take the complete mickey out of me because I'm using the word about a connection to a coat, but the point is, it's how I want to buy that coat, but it's an investment. I think that's what I'm trying to get to. So as an investment, I want to invest in. So you want to check everything out. It's like buying a car, isn't it? You don't, you're sort of invested in that. You're sort of forming ultimately a connection to it. So here we go. I get a lot of questions about VM and people and jobs and any sort of future thinking on VMs. I think the challenge, and there's another bit here, sort of, I don't, to be honest, Elizabeth, I don't know. I think what I would always say, and I said a few weeks ago to people in VM, and I know it's hard at the minute. Like VM is always the first to get cut. Like VM is always, and I've been cut myself in the past. You know, when things get tough for retailers, they normally cut the creatives because it's an additional resource. You know, you need your operations, you need all those things to keep everything moving, but the visual piece is always seen as a kind of nice add-on. The challenge with that is it's not, but it's about what I think from a visual point of view is ensuring that you're keeping relevant to the future of retail, I suppose, and ensuring that you're kind of in tune with either the brand that you're working for, the brand you want to work for, or you're in tune with what's happening in the market, you're in tune with current trends and all those sort of things. But thinking outside the box, I suppose, is where I always put my sort of thoughts in my head, is how will you engage and stand out, whether it's through a VM activation in a store or a wide VM strategy globally for a brand or whatever you're doing. How are you going to stand out from someone else? How are you going to make your display or your pop-up or your store environment or your window, whatever it is, how is it going to be different from someone else's? How is it going to be better? How is it going to capture attention? How is it going to tell the story of the brand? You know, and that's ultimately the point of a VM, is to bring that story to life. So I think the future of VM is to be more engaged with that. I think it's to understand digital. It's to understand how you can use technology to bring the story to life. But I suppose the piece with the VM is they're the kind of juggler of all the parts. You know, they bring everything to life. So I never sort of proclaim to be a super tech person, to be knowledgeable about technology and the application, but what you've got to be knowledgeable or in tune with or up to date on is what is possible, what things can be done, how technology could be used to bring activations to life, you know, all of those sort of things. So yeah, it's about making sure that you can add further value, I suppose, for your employer. Maybe, I don't know, less so I would say through physical skills, but more through creative thinking. But yeah, so that's kind of my take on it. But I've just chatted again for another 35 minutes, which hopefully, I don't know, I just kind of keep coming on here every week, and I know hopefully we overcome the technical problems at the beginning. And I was chatting around at the beginning about my 893 birthday messages, what I wanted to say thanks to anyone who sent them, because I've been working through them all this morning. So yeah, the LinkedIn love is quite good, isn't it? So I've enjoyed that, and yeah, as I was rambling on this morning about my birthday weekend, and just finish on a high, because I did say that I wasn't going to talk political, but what a weekend to have a birthday with two daughters, and seeing Kamala Harris becoming vice president. So that was a good birthday present. So yeah, I'll just throw that in as a random thought for the rest of the day, because that was good. That was a nice way to celebrate the weekend. But anyway, what I was planning on doing next week, hopefully if people continue to come back and see this, and again, I do put out, no one's taken the baton yet, about getting someone on here to have a conversation with face to face or side to side. I think that's what it probably is. So again, I might start badgering someone if no one puts their hand up. I think it's like that in a class. So if anyone wants to do it, I'd love to have a one-to-one conversation on here. If not, I might just ask a few of you how you're feeling about it. But again, I was planning on coming back next week for week 6 to sort of debate the future of the shopping centre, and then week 7, which is the week after, would be the future of the department store. So again, if anyone's got any thoughts or comments or takeaways or bits they want to put into that, yeah, I think it'll be great to get you included in it. But I will put those onto LinkedIn. Actually, let's finish on this one before I go, because I think this is huge. Not huge, not like, but a hugely good point, if that's even a word. And it's so true. It's not the work that visual merchandisers and people in terms of retail creative and all those sort of things. It's not an add-on. It's a lifeblood of a business. And about its identity and how customers identify it with it. And I go back to those sort of stories about when I was a kid, a 9 and 10-year-old, and my mum would take me up to London on the bus, on a coach, to see the Christmas windows. Those sort of they sort of stay with you. Those memories and those thoughts and those feelings towards windows, and they stay with you. And I think it is visual is such a hugely underappreciated part of a retailer's strategy, and I definitely feel that 2021 and onwards will be a renaissance for the period. So I just, part of me is why I come on each week is to make sure that everyone who's sort of connected to retail and visual merchandising sort of still feels passionate about it, sees the importance of it, and feels there's a future for it. So as I was saying, I'll be back next week to talk about shopping centres, or I don't know if they're even called shopping centres anymore. Maybe we'll come up with the sexier name for them. But talk about shopping centres and how they can what they probably can revise their strategies and what their position looks like. So again, if you want to take part, ping me a message if you've got any thoughts or questions beforehand. Do get in touch. So thanks again for joining. Apologies for any microphone issues at the beginning, and I'll see you next week. Cheers guys, bye.